Hi, I'd like to share some insights on the newly minted Wi-Fi in 6 gigahertz or Wi-Fi 6E in a home context. Well, we've been spending a lot of time indoors. Many of us are confined to home. So I think it's also very apt to look at this scenario given this condition. My name is Srikanth and I am with Anosel Networks. So how does a home scenario typically look like? Well, one could have more than one AP these days with the multi-AP trend, especially for slightly larger homes. And if we look at some of the 6 gigahertz indoor rules, as you know, indoors is what might be prevalent for quite some time as rules are finalized and certain details are going to be worked out on the outdoors. Indoors is going to be definitely the place where we'll see 6 gigahertz. And here, of course, looking at the house or the home, we see that we have potential for maybe a multi-AP deployment. Of course, clients could be inside the home or just outside connecting to these APs. Now, all these APs, whether it is the route or some of these backhaul stations as they are called, these all of them can operate at the maximum AIRP limits. For example, in the US regulatory domain, it's 30 dBm max AIRP. This also bandwidth dependent, encouraging the use of wider bandwidth. A few rules and regulations are brought in to make sure that these remain indoors. And mobile devices have to be at 6 dB lower power than the AP that they are associating with, capped at a maximum power of this for the 320 megahertz bandwidth transmission. So when we look at this home Wi-Fi deployment, what is happening today is people are buying either 2 radio or 3 radio APs. And whenever it is 3 radio, of course, it can be expensive, but it provides the sort of, you can almost say, an exclusive link on the backhaul, and you generally tend to get much better performance when you have to hop on from, let's say, a link here. Okay. Now, what does 6 gigahertz bring to in this scenario? One could think of 6 gigahertz radio being added to this product, and so we default have a 3 radio with 1 radio maybe assigned to 6 gigahertz. Is that going to be useful for serving clients? Now, many clients are going to take their own time to bring in 6 gigahertz. Of course, some of the flagship ones already have announced in the process, etc. But I would think that the majority of the clients we are going to see in the next, say, a few years or even longer are probably going to be 2.4 and 5. So this is something that we can keep in mind, that a lot of the clients in many places are likely to be supporting 2.4 and 5. So in that scenario, is it wise to waste a radio for access when you know that the client base is not going to be very strong? Are there any other problems to be solved at home using 6 gigahertz? And the answer is there is a backhaul challenge. Remember that we were using one of the 5 gigahertz radios, possibly sometimes time sharing. Backhaul becomes very crucial for the ultimate experience when you're connected to the satellite node. Now the 6 gigahertz backhaul running at say 160 megahertz bandwidth, because of the PST limits put in places like the US, can use decent powers of the orders of 26 dBm. They can carry good distance. Remember that there will be losses compared to 5 gigahertz, but we must also understand that the 5 gigahertz, as we go to higher and higher bandwidth, it's not a PSD limit. So the 160 megahertz of 6 gigahertz can maintain this 26 dBm power, whereas the typical 5 gigahertz, typically loses power as we go on because of various conditions. Okay. Remember again, you can make a 5 gigahertz product of 27 dBm according to the regulatory limit. So there's no problem. So technically 5 gigahertz could do better, but then 5 gigahertz can be better used to serve clients, whereas the 6 gigahertz now with the possibility of large bandwidth, decent power, and more importantly, almost a clean channel. Okay. Remember, this also should be taken into account because though the losses might be higher in 6 gigahertz, let's say compared to 5 gigahertz, the ability to have a almost clean and exclusive channel, which is like saying that, okay, you have a lane for yourself. It might not be as fast at times as some of the other lanes, but you don't have any disturbance. I think that makes for a interesting use case where we could think of backhaul. And not to forget, remember that the regulations do allow 320 megahertz bandwidth transmissions. Yes, it is not a part of the 11AX standards. It's coming as a part of the next gen 11BE standards. So you can expect some proprietary modes where vendors could come up with a 320 megahertz bandwidth backhaul. And that can allow, remember, you don't lose power in the regulations in countries like US. You can go to 30 dBm, which means the coverage for that at a given MCS is similar to the coverage for 160 megahertz. So given all these conditions, I would definitely say that this is a potentially interesting use case, at least in the near term, with the future possibility of being used for both backhaul and access. So for more information, please take a look at our websites. We also have several courses through Wi-Fi Now Academy. Thank you.